Dinar shift-to-seismic event is resonating through the global financial architecture today, as Iraq's central economic authorities have confirmed a policy shift that holds the potential to permanently redefine the valuation of the Iraqi dinar. For years, the narrative surrounding the IQD has been mired in speculation and anticipation, a waiting game played by countless individuals and institutions, hoping for a dramatic revaluation of the currency. That dynamic has been irrevocably altered, moving from the realm of persistent rumor to the concrete reality of official policy. The introduction of a formal contract rate is not merely a technical adjustment. It is a profound declaration of intent by Iraq, signaling a readiness to step onto the world stage as a newly confident and economically structured nation. This landmark decision, taking shape as 2025 unfolds, represents perhaps the most ambitious economic maneuver in the country's modern history, and the implications for both domestic stability and international commerce are truly monumental, capturing the attention of every major financial center. This crucial action, while profound in its impact, was not unveiled with political fanfare or public spectacle. Instead, it was delivered with a quiet authority that belies its true significance. Iraqi central authorities have formally recognized and implemented a contract rate, which acts as a foundational pillar for a new chapter in the nation's monetary strategy. To fully appreciate this development, one must understand what this term signifies. A contract rate is essentially a specially negotiated preferential exchange rate used for large-scale, high-value financial dealings. These are not the public-facing rates seen at local currency exchange shops. Rather, they are reserved for sophisticated transactions involving national governments, major multinational corporations, or premier financial entities. This special rate serves as a barometer of underlying economic confidence and reflects a long-term commitment to the currency's strength, a stark contrast to the volatile market rate. The very establishment of a formalized contract rate underscores Iraq's renewed capacity and willingness to engage in structured, high-tier financial agreements and substantial international trade. This move is fundamentally incompatible with the actions of a fragile or struggling economy. It is, unequivocally, the action of a state deliberately positioning itself for serious and measured integration into the global economy. This calculated step is a direct challenge to the historical perception of the dinar, suggesting that the nation's financial leadership believes the currency is prepared to handle the pressures of higher value exchange. It acts as an official endorsement of the dinar's intrinsic value, moving the conversation away from historical instability and toward future potential, forcing international markets to acknowledge a credible shift in Iraq's economic footing. To accurately gauge the magnitude of this inflection point, one must recall the tumultuous economic history that has shadowed Iraq for decades. The once formidable Iraqi dinar, a pillar of regional financial stability, saw its value drastically eroded through years of geopolitical conflict, international sanctions, and pervasive political uncertainty. The scars of this instability led to a significant loss of confidence in the currency, yet the underlying economic fundamentals of Iraq have always offered a compelling counter-argument to this pessimism. Possessing some of the world's most extensive oil reserves, a vibrant and youthful demographic, and strategically deepening international partnerships, many financial observers maintained a long-held belief that the dinar was fundamentally undervalued. The introduction of this contract rate may now be viewed as the first truly undeniable physical evidence of that long-anticipated economic resurgence beginning to materialize, transforming a historical hope into a tangible policy action. The financial community worldwide is currently engaged in an intensive debate over the potential implications of this new policy. The primary focus is whether the contract rate is a calculated prologue to a broader, more public revaluation event, a move where the official exchange rate would be comprehensively adjusted to align with Iraq's stronger, modernized economic realities. If such a full-scale revaluation were to be executed, it would translate to a significant and immediate change in the dinar's international purchasing power. The global reaction has been immediate and profound. Respected financial commentators are already labeling this announcement as one of the most critical financial policy developments expected in 2025. This contract rate is being interpreted by some experts as an elaborate strategic testing phase, a crucial trial run to observe how a higher dinar valuation performs in the contained but demanding environment of large-scale international government and corporate contracts. Other influential analysts argue that this is Iraq's measured and sophisticated means of broadcasting an undeniable signal to the major global markets. asserting that the nation's economy has achieved a meaningful level of stabilization and maturation. The message is clear. It is time for the international investment community to recalibrate their assessments and view the country through a fresh, more optimistic lens. Regardless of the precise strategic intent, the simple fact of the contract rate's existence has forcefully propelled Iraq back into the global financial spotlight, a position of prominence that is now framed by a noticeably more positive and forward-looking economic sentiment than has been observed in recent memory. The days of dismissing Iraq's economic potential appear to be drawing to a close, replaced by a sense of serious, albeit cautious, consideration from the world's treasury departments and boardrooms. The question naturally arises: what precisely is the source of this seemingly sudden and determined confidence emanating from Iraq's central financial institutions? The foundation for this boldness has been built upon years of diligent, often unpublicized commitment to fundamental economic and institutional reform. Iraq has been systematically engaged in a comprehensive project to modernize its entire banking infrastructure, elevate standards of financial transparency, and harmonize its core monetary policy with the stringent expectations of international regulatory bodies. These necessary painstaking changes were not accomplished in haste. They are the cumulative result of a sustained and strategic effort to painstakingly rebuild trust with powerful global financial entities, including institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. With a concerted focus on tightening controls against financial corruption, a steady and encouraging growth in its foreign currency reserves, and a noticeable cooling of domestic inflation pressures, Iraq's underlying financial infrastructure is demonstrably more robust and secure than it has been for decades. In this context, the implementation of the contract rate transcends being a mere regulatory detail. It serves as a powerful statement of Iraq's strategic intent. It explicitly communicates the nation's readiness to transact and engage on an elevated plane of financial credibility, a calculated effort that could finally succeed in bridging the long-standing gap that has existed between optimistic currency speculation and the realization of genuine, long-term sustainable economic expansion. This policy is a formal move toward institutionalizing the dinar's potential strength. However, a critical distinction must be maintained. The introduction of this contract rate does not immediately translate into a direct, public benefit for every individual holding the currency. By design, contract rates are inherently non-public, intended exclusively for colossal, high-stakes transactions pertaining to large-scale government projects, critical national infrastructure development, or expansive international trade agreements. Nevertheless, this fundamental distinction in no way diminishes the policy's profound long-term significance. Historically, nations that embark on the path of currency reform and stability often utilize a contract rate as a strategic, low-risk testing ground before they commit to a broader, more impactful adjustment of their public exchange rate. One can conceptualize this approach as an extremely high-stakes, nation-level pilot program. If this newly established system proves to be resilient, and if Iraq's financial authorities can successfully navigate these complex, high-value contract transactions without unleashing destabilizing inflationary pressures across the domestic economy, it would establish a robust and credible financial precedent. Such a successful implementation would lay the concrete groundwork for a far-reaching countrywide exchange rate shift that would ultimately be accessible to the wider public and all market participants. Put succinctly, this formal contract rate could very well represent the deliberate, controlled soft launch for the much-discussed, large-scale revaluation event that has been the focus of international attention for so long. For those individuals and entities who have maintained a long-term position in the Iraqi dinar, this formal announcement represents a confluence of both profound hope and an implied careful warning. The hope is deeply rooted in the official acknowledgement by the government that the dinar possesses an inherent potential for significant value appreciation, a validation that moves the issue from the periphery to the center of national policy. The accompanying warning, however, is a reminder that such complex, far-reaching monetary shifts are inherently intricate undertakings that demand significant time to execute. A true, successful revaluation is not a sudden, unilateral decision. It necessitates meticulous strategic planning, the achievement of critical domestic economic equilibrium, and, perhaps most importantly, substantial international financial and political coordination. Despite the necessity for patience, the powerful symbolism embedded within this new policy remains undeniable. Iraq is no longer sidestepping the sensitive, long-running conversation about its currency's actual strength and its potential for recovery. Instead, the nation is now engaging in a deliberate process of taking measured, institutionally controlled steps toward formally recognizing and realizing that strength in a demonstrably measurable and credible way. This pivotal moment marks a clear departure from a past characterized by uncertainty, and marks an entry into a future defined by carefully managed financial action. The implementation of the contract rate is, therefore, a tangible policy milestone, signaling a concrete commitment to a stronger currency future. Financial historians, looking back at global economic transitions, consistently note that when developing economies transition their focus from highly speculative models to robust, structured financial reforms, the introduction of a contract rate often functions as the essential transitionary bridge. Nations with a history of profound currency adjustments, such as Kuwait, Vietnam, and even the People's Republic of China, have at different times employed strategically similar mechanisms to manage the complex shift of their currencies toward more resilient and influential international standings. For Iraq, this contract rate is its contemporary version of that crucial transitional mechanism, expertly adapted to its unique economic circumstances and global position. The critical factor that distinguishes Iraq's current situation is a unique alignment of economic stars. The nation is experiencing a steady and significant increase in its vital oil export capacities, witnessing a tangible return of long-absent foreign investors, and benefiting from a demonstrable and improving trend toward regional political and economic stability. When these powerful and positive factors are fused together, they create an exceptionally conducive environment for a currency that is inherently poised and ready to strengthen its value and international standing. This confluence of internal reform and external market favor creates the perfect backdrop for a monetary policy, innovation like the contract rate to genuinely succeed and set the stage for further economic breakthroughs. We must also acknowledge the immediate and profound psychological impact that this announcement has had on the global community that closely follows the dinar. For many years, this community has been starkly divided between those who maintained a hopeful, near-certain belief in a coming revaluation and those who remained deeply skeptical, often dismissing the talk as unfounded conjecture or an internet fantasy. With the official, irrefutable introduction of a concrete contract rate by central authorities, the nature of the entire conversation has undergone a dramatic transformation. The most hardened skeptics are now compelled to reconsider their long-held positions, while the long-term believers find their patience and faith in Iraq's underlying potential officially validated and substantially reinforced. Crucially, while this recent announcement does not serve as a definitive confirmation of a full, immediate revaluation, it does solidify one undeniable truth. Iraq's financial engine is decisively moving forward, rejecting stagnation and embracing a path of proactive development. Another compelling facet of this ongoing narrative is its intimate connection to Iraq's ambitious, long-term global trade aspirations. The government is aggressively pursuing and finalizing strategic economic partnerships with major global energy consortia, multinational infrastructure developers, and cutting-edge digital finance pioneers. The contract rate is perfectly engineered to be the instrumental tool that facilitates the successful closure of these massive, high-value international agreements, providing a mechanism for exchange rate stability. When a nation begins to consistently utilize officially negotiated exchange rates for its most substantial and critical national projects, it conveys an unmistakable sense of confidence and financial seriousness to its prospective foreign partners. This policy communicates that their massive investments are being securely underpinned by a national currency that is actively and measurably growing in credibility and strength. This powerful demonstration of confidence has the potential to trigger a significant snowball effect, attracting an even greater volume of lucrative international contracts, which in turn leads to a healthier accumulation of foreign reserves, and ultimately results in a more robust and permanent increase in the intrinsic value of the currency itself, leading. Economic observers are currently labeling this period as arguably the most critical and decisive financial window for Iraq. Since the immediate aftermath of the early 2000s, the long-term success, or conversely, the failure of this contract rate initiative holds the decisive power to determine how the global community ultimately perceives Iraq's financial future and its status in the international system. A successful, stable implementation could be the catalyst that finally propels Iraq from its current categorization as a high-risk, high-reward investment jurisdiction into the respected, stable ranks of a fully recognized emerging market economy. Should this profound shift occur, the dinar's challenging journey from a historically undervalued asset to a globally recognized and respected currency could accelerate with a speed that defies most current expectations. This is precisely why the central bank's announcement carries such immense weight. It is a story that goes far beyond the technical details of exchange rates. It is fundamentally about a sovereign nation consciously and proactively reclaiming its long-lost economic identity and financial autonomy. Notwithstanding the compelling wave of optimism, a consensus among global economic experts is a firm call for continued measured patience. While the positive momentum is clearly warranted, it is essential for all market participants to grasp that global, large-scale economic and monetary shifts inherently require significant time to fully manifest and mature. Even if Iraq's contract rate experiment performs flawlessly, the complex transition to a revalued, stable public rate could easily span a period of months or even several years. The path forward is guaranteed to involve intricate political debates, complex international negotiations with partner nations and global bodies, and substantial domestic economic adjustments before any major, publicly accessible monetary event takes place. Nevertheless, the fact that these vital, high-level discussions are now firmly rooted in the bedrock of a formal, official central bank policy, rather than being driven by speculative rumor, imbues them with a level of credibility and substance never before witnessed. Meanwhile, within Iraq's domestic economy, this significant development is anticipated to have a powerful and enduring morale-boosting effect on the populace. The dinar has historically been a complex symbol, a mixture of national pride and deep-seated economic frustration for the everyday Iraqi citizen. For the Iraqi people, a visibly and measurably stronger national currency translates directly into improved purchasing power in the market, a greater sense of overall personal financial stability, and a profound, renewed sense of national sovereignty over their own economic destiny. The beneficial impacts are not solely reserved for foreign investors. They are profoundly centered on providing the Iraqi citizens with a credible, reliable currency they can fully trust and depend upon for their daily lives. Furthermore, a stable and credible dinar has the essential capacity to attract a greater flow of legitimate global trade and significantly diminish the domestic economy's excessive reliance on the US dollar for internal transactions, a crucial, long-standing strategic objective of Iraq's central bank authorities. The potential implications of this currency stabilization stretch even further into the international sphere. If Iraq maintains and continues to strengthen its domestic currency stability, it will soon meet the necessary qualifications for greater and more meaningful participation in premier global financial platforms. This prospective involvement includes the highly anticipated potential entry into major international digital payment clearing systems and a full integration into established cross-border trade networks. Such transformative moves would only serve to geometrically strengthen the dinar's intrinsic position and its perceived reliability within the world's complex financial markets. Many authoritative analysts are convinced that this is the precise, long-term vision that Iraq is meticulously preparing for, not merely a temporary or short-term bump in currency value, but a comprehensive, full-scale modernization and total rebranding of its entire national financial identity. Despite the palpable sense of excitement and expectation, experts continue to issue a consistent, careful note of caution. By their very design, contract rates are strictly reserved for specific, enormous-scale government and corporate deals, and should not be automatically or prematurely assumed to translate into an immediate, proportionate increase in the public exchange rate for average retail investors. The temptation to succumb to market hype is strong, but the sober reality is that profound monetary policy adjustments, particularly those involving a currency's foundational value, move with deliberate and often glacial slowness. What is uniquely different and encouraging this time, however, is the undeniable and clearly communicated direction of travel. For the first time in many years, that policy direction appears to be upward, guided by an Iraqi economic management team that projects a focused, deliberate, and clearly long-term strategic readiness to play the global financial game with new rules. Let us conclude by taking a necessary step back to fully appreciate the overarching significance of this historical moment. After surviving decades of immense geopolitical and economic hardship, Iraq is now definitively signaling to the entire world that it is prepared to fully move beyond a perpetual state of crisis and transition toward genuine, lasting prosperity. The new contract rate, therefore, is not the anticipated finish line. It must be viewed as the definitive starting line for an entirely new phase of national economic confidence and calculated, controlled growth. Whether this pivotal move ultimately culminates in a sudden, full public revaluation or an alternative strategy of gradual, managed strengthening of the dinar over time, it represents an undisputed, fundamental turning point in the currency's history. Long-term observers and patient investors who have weathered years of uncertainty may finally be witnessing the first, institutionally backed signs that their faith in Iraq's economic potential is beginning to yield measurable, official results. As the financial calendar progresses through the remainder of 2025, economic experts suggest that all eyes should remain fixed on a few key, revealing indicators: Iraq's forthcoming major trade agreements, its consistent updated oil export data releases, and critical announcements from international banking institutions. Each of these official data points will serve as a transparent measure of how effectively and smoothly Iraq is implementing and managing its new contract rate strategy. If a growing number of countries and major corporations begin to formally engage in signing high-value contracts under the framework of this new preferential rate, it will serve as the most powerful and tangible confirmation that Iraq's modernized financial systems are operating proficiently and that the world market is indeed ready to embrace its long-anticipated economic comeback story. For the immediate future, one fact remains absolutely certain. Iraq has initiated a major policy move that the global financial community can no longer choose to ignore. The introduction of the contract rate is a simultaneous act of both powerful symbolism and deeply rooted complex strategy. It is the clearest possible signal that Iraq's economy is successfully maturing, that its national currency is actively regaining its strength, and that the long, convoluted dinar story may finally be entering its most exciting and potentially consequential chapter, yet moving definitively from the realm of hope to the reality of structured policy.